Greetings and salutations. I hope everyone is doing well and welcome to today's upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter and are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload. Shall we? All right, so today's upload is given or shared to us via a subscriber and her boyfriend at the time. They are now married. We are going to use aliases for them just because of the experience. It was traumatic. They also were ushered out of the area via a government van. It took place in New Mexico, and many of you know how I feel about New Mexico. I view that state as something very supernatural. There is something very special about that state. I don't know what it is and why the attraction to that area from these very strange creatures, very strange goings on. It's almost like the Midwest. I guess New Mexico would be considered Midwest, Southwestern Appalachia, if you really want to think about it in the aspect of the paranormal and the events that are drawn to that area. It's a very dark area. Even when the settling of the United States was occurring, old miners would have events that they couldn't describe or couldn't actually describe. They had no words for them. Obviously, I believe that a large portion of the northern part of New Mexico and the southern part of Colorado, there exists a deep underground facility or deep underground city created by the Luciferian agenda, the Draco or Draconian, and the alien Gray. These cities and facilities were built long before our government had even the tools to do what they did during that time period of expansion and creating these deep underground facilities for the military and government. You know, you got to think it was in the 30s, 40s, and 50s when our presidents were meeting with the Gray as a kind of ambassador. Very few presidents, I believe it was only Eisenhower, maybe Truman, had seen a true Draconian, and these creatures were very, very powerful. So the alien gray was almost like the ambassador to the human. And then they said, here, give us X amount of humans a year or whatever, a month, and we will give you unlimited power. And with that power, you do what you would like with it. And they gave us nuclear power. They also gave us a lot of military industrial complex creations. Even though it wasn't the complex itself, it was under the tutelage of these gray aliens. Hitler had the same pact, but he did not go as far as our government, in the fact that our government allowed their people to be kidnapped, experimented on, and ultimately thrown away by these creatures in these deep underground laboratories. Dulce being one of the most famous. So there is something very powerful about New Mexico. And I've had numerous encounters shared with me and then I share it with you, ranging from crawlers, ranging from dogmen, from Bigfoot to Thunderbirds. It is, and then you have the alien or Luciferian agenda, these demonic creatures. So when I ended up getting on the phone with Maria, she has already heard how I feel about New Mexico. One of the states that I really want to go to before I get too old and whatnot. One, because it's absolutely beautiful. Two, because there's just such a power there. And also you got to think about what the creatures were drawn there. These Luciferian, draconian, alien, gray creatures, demons essentially. They were drawn there, but also our government didn't go too far away either. I mean, Carlsbad, Los Alamos, Dulce, Taos, I could just, all of these little significant points throughout that state that has some underlining government kind of planning. So, a lot of creatures. I believe the crawlers are a direct result of an experiment using draconian or Draco and alien gray and quite possibly human DNA. I'm not really sure 100% about that because all right. So Maria reaches out and says, I've had an experience with my boyfriend back in 2013, and I'd like to share it with you. I know how you feel about New Mexico. I have no idea. This is her talking. I have no idea what Tony and I saw that day. I have listened to numerous podcasts, numerous sources of information, anything that, and she could not figure out what she saw with her boyfriend at the time, Tony, and now her husband. So beautiful. She will never forget the date. She will never forget the date. It is 12 years later. And she remembers the exact day, August 24th. It was a Saturday. 2013. They are in a region of San Miguel County, New Mexico, in the area of Verrero, which is just north of Pecos, and another little unincorporated kind of hamlet, Holy Ghost. Now, in that surrounding area, there is a lot of woodland, hiking trails, camping areas, and that's exactly why they had gone there. You don't have to sleep in a tent. You can actually, there are some campsites up there, or back then, that you could actually rent a small kind of cottage cabin. Just really a beautiful place to go kind of on a vacation. So they're up there, and probably day 1 or 2, she says, so they had gotten there on a Thursday, so that would have been the 22nd. Right from the very get-go, they started to notice a large number of helicopters in that area, all blacked out, military or government, whatever you want to call it. So they notice all of these helicopters just going over these camp areas, these hiking trails, and they turn on. Her boyfriend had brought in a radio with him, one of those AM FM weather band, and kind of like a CB as well. Pretty expensive radio to own, and especially 12 years ago. So they were trying to figure out if there were some sort of, are there like a war game going on up here? Is it, troops? Or should we not be here? Because the person that they had rented this cottage from, that they were staying, didn't even live in the area. He was an out-of-state owner of a couple of these cottages up in that area. So they're witnessing all of these kind of weird helicopters going over. They make casual contact about it, or casual conversation about it. It's like, is there war games going on? Just, they're not really worried about it. It's just really weird because they've been to this area before, and there's never been any event like this. Do you think someone escaped, and that's why they turned on this very kind of expensive radio that Tony owned? And they're trying to scan through. There's nothing via AM, FM news, trying to get any kind of chatter on shortwave. They have it's a non-communicatable radio. They can't communicate via. They can listen to. Maybe law enforcement, and they do catch a couple of kind of squelches, or whatever the hell they're called, where they hear mention of the area where they are, like peaks and stuff, where they've witnessed these helicopters going towards and coming from, and they hear one of them being like Elk Mountain and Lake Peak, which is essentially where they are in the middle of these two locations. And they keep listening because they're like, what's going on? They ask one of the nearest kind of cabin that is rented for this weekend time. Have you heard anything? How long have you been here? Like they introduce themselves. How long have you been here? A couple days. Have you noticed the helicopters? And yeah, we have, but we haven't heard anything. Haven't seen anything either other than that. So maybe they're just doing flyovers, training or whatever. Yeah, maybe. And so they just move on with their time being there. So on the 23rd, they have dinner. Day goes great. Couple little hike areas they've gone to. They cook dinner. They're outside, and they're sitting by the little fire pit that is part of the cabin's property. Just sitting next to each other, enjoying the quiet, the solitude, the fire, each other. And they literally are sitting there, and all of a sudden it's dead silent, nighttime dead silent. Tony realizes, and he's like, have you heard like any kind of bugs or anything? He goes, because all I hear is the crackling of the fire and an occasional twig snap or whatever, just something that wouldn't put you off, that is a naturally occurring sound, almost like when you hear like 16 twigs snapping in a straight line, then shit's gonna hit the fan. But periodic nothing too concerning. And they just kind of, and Maria says, I noticed that it was quiet. I thought it was nice. And he's like, yeah, it is nice. And he kind of just puts it off. And like a minute or two later, it was almost like this thing just appeared above them. There is another government kind of blacked out helicopter. This one's smaller than the last couple. And they don't hear it coming towards their camp, but they hear it when it's directly over them. And there is canopy all around them from the tree, but where their cabin that they're renting, there's not too much canopy right there. You've got a cleared spot for a cabin, a small piece of property. The back is cleared out of trees as well, but just what the hell? Where'd that come from? Real weird. And then it just goes shoop, gone. And Maria says, I never will forget what Tony said was, I bet you they're hunting for Bigfoot. And he chuckled. And Maria, now knowing what they had witnessed that night on the 24th, is she wishes that what they had seen or what that helicopter was flying over was a Bigfoot. Because what they witnessed probably 16 hours later was a creature that changed their lives, almost ruined others. So they go to bed, not thinking anything of it, about an hour later. And as they are going into the cabin, Tony stands on the deck and kind of looks around. Maria said that she said, I'll never forget him just kind of staring out and wondering what he was thinking at that point, because he looked like he was terrified, but very curious as well. And as he came in, he said, the sounds are back. And she kind of, what? What do you mean? And he said, come here. And he brought her out, and sure enough, nature was back. It just was, mind-blowing for everyone. So she's kind of shocked because it was dead silent, and now it was like a flick of the switch. We've heard it multiple times before. They go to bed. They get up the next morning. Night is uneventful, except for the helicopter and the kind of strange disappearance of sound and the Oz effect, essentially. And they decide, all right, let's have a hike. Let's go on a really good hike today. They kind of had, this is kind of TMI, but she had one plan, he had another. He was going to propose to her on this hike, and she wanted to give him a gift on a picnic blanket in the middle of the woods. So they both had kind of different plans, but they were pretty good. So she's kind of amped up, ready to go. So, just spicing up their life. He's excited because he's going to pop the question to the love of his life. And they start down the trails, and they are actually hiking towards the Holy Ghost region, which is not very far at all. And there's little campgrounds, pavilions, trailheads everywhere, just everywhere. It's densely wooded, but there are trailheads that are marked. There are campgrounds that are marked. It's just a very beautiful, interesting area. Something you wouldn't expect in New Mexico if you've never looked into the different kind of geographic differences. I don't have the right word for it, but so they go out, and she says, they kind of want to go off the trail because now she's leading the way to give her gift to him. So instead of being on the main trail, she says, oh, look, there's like a little trail over there. Let's go down that trail. He's immediately thinking, well, that's awesome, because I don't really want to do it on the main trail where some random person can walk by while I'm videoing this and proposing. So they both kind of go down this little trail. And as they're going down the trail, they're talking, and the trail it's not very wide to begin with, but it starts to slowly narrow, ever so slowly, to where they cannot walk side by side. The dense wood is right aside of them. There's nothing but. If they had gone the opposite way and backtracked about 1 mile, 2 miles, they would have been fine on a different trailhead. But they get into this little trail system, and they kind of stop for a second. He's deciding if he should, and automatically, just before she could kind of set up her surprise for him, he drops to one knee, pops the question, and she accepts. Now, just like any other person that is in love with their significant other, and they pop the question, yes, there is going to be some noise. There's going to be some screaming and happiness, this, and that. She says yes. And she's teared up. And she kind of pulls him closer. And at this point, she lays down this blanket. Newly proposed love occurs on the forest floor on a blanket. And as they are dressing afterward, it immediately registers and feels like something's in the woods, something's watching them in that surrounding area. We should probably leave, because he or she don't really know the predator system that is in the area, like they're thinking wolves, whatever, coyote. So they pack up quick, and instead of turning back around, for some reason they got kind of off course. So literally, instead of just turning around and walking out, they realized, oh, we probably get out this way. Let's go. It'll probably be faster. And they start to hike through. Probably half a mile into their trip, there is what sounds like, the best way she put it was how when a cat is super, super crazy and excited, it'll climb those cat trees. That's what they heard. This kind of claw, slippage, strange kind of moan, and immediately they're both like, what the fuck was that? Tony pushes her kind of behind him, and he points and he says, what's that? And what they see is truly terrifying. In front of them stands what they, at that precise moment, called the devil. Or something similar. It was something like 7.5 to 8 feet in height. It was slender, but not sickly slender. It did not look emaciated, but it also wasn't huge. In front of them, they are looking and trying to figure out what this thing is, because one is a very strange, hairless, whitish in color. Arms are super long. Their legs super long. Very strange and small torso. So, all in all, what she is describing to me at this point in my head is, I'm thinking crawler. Like, immediately, I am thinking crawler. You've got a 7.5 to 8 foot creature, slender, not emaciated, which was a little weird for me, because I was like, yeah, they're usually like very scrawny. White in color, long arms, long legs, pretty much just, very short, kind of weird looking torso, just really long legs and arms. And the strangest thing that she said as she's going through, and I'm, waiting to hear the facial And she describes its face. It did not have those strange kind of obsidian black eyes. And it did not have like the nondescript face. There was a very distinct mouth with teeth. The eyes seemed to be a whitish with kind of like a red pupil is the best. And I was like, were they glowing? And she's like, I don't know, because it was still daytime when we saw this, but you could see clearly they were red, because everything else on this creature is this whitish color. She goes, but I could tell that they were red. So could Tony. And then she says, and it was flicking as it's standing in front of us. It's hunched, but then it stands straight up. And that's when we got to see its height entirely. But it seemed to be flicking this tail that was as long as its arms or legs, very slender looking white tail, hairless. This thing is completely hairless. And it's kind of like moving its tail as it's staring at us. And I stopped. Like, I didn't stop her. I stopped thinking at that point. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, tail? Crawler with a tail? And she said, I've seen, and I said, I don't know how, I think I said crawler with a tail. But what she said to me is, I've seen depictions of the crawler, of the rake, similar but not. This thing was like a crawler, just stronger looking with a tail, and it had kind of a nondescript face. You could distinctly see characteristics in this thing's face. As they're standing in front of this thing, they're like, what the are we looking at? It kind of drops its knees and arms and does this kind of scream. A very loud and not high pitched, but it was loud, so it did sound kind of pitchy, but there was definitely some deepness to it. Instantly, at that point, Tony pushes her behind him. Because if this thing's coming to attack, he just proposed to his fiance. He's not losing his fiance now. He's, it does that kind of stance and just turns around and goes up the tree. It literally just went right up the tree, like a cat could climb a tree. Very quick, with no kind of slippage, no kind of effort. It was just up in the tree. Tony turns and looks at her and said, "Run." And they both just started to run down that back trail, hoping to God they could make it to the main trail. I literally have cold chills on my arms right now just because of that description of that creature. They are running as fast as they can down this trail. And what they hear is almost like when something would jump and land at the top part of a tree. You would hear kind of a shuffle of the leaves and a bend of the top part of the tree. Shuffle of the leaves, bend of the top part of the tree. Shuffle of the leaves. So this thing is literally going from side to side of that trail. It is behind them, but it is not that far behind them now. It is catching up, and they had a head start. Because the second this thing went up the tree, it almost appeared like it was going away from them. They hit that main trail, and they start to run the opposite direction. They are so terrified that they didn't realize, like, our camp's that way, and they went that way. All of a sudden, they're just realized they're seeing markers of different things that they did not see on their way here. And they stop because since they hit the main trail, they could hear whatever that creature is in the woods opposite of them, but not crossing into the trail. And it seemed like it was further out into the woods. Like it could see them, but it wanted to stay just far enough away, but just close enough away to get them if it needed to. They stop and they're out of wind. Tony looks at Maria and says, "We got to turn around. We're going the wrong way. We're going the wrong way." And she has now kind of broke down. Like, I don't want to go that way. That's where that thing is. I can't go that. I can't move. I said, I cannot move. I'm terrified. And he says, "Listen, we have to run. I'm not going to let this thing hurt you, but I don't want to die either. So let's go. I promise you that you will get out of this if I have to give myself to that creature in order for you to live. Like, I will stand it toe to toe with it and pretty much lose, but at least you're getting away." They dead ass sprint towards their camp. Their camp is 2 miles from where they are. And as they are hauling ass down this trail, they have not heard any kind of noise on the side now. Because it was still on that same side. Just they're the only people. They're the only thing that has changed in the direction of their going. The creature has always been on that side of them. They see a marker. They recognize that marker point. They realize, okay, we are getting closer to our camp. She just pulls ahead a little bit because he kind of slows down. And he goes, "Just run. Run if you get to the camp before I do. Shut the door. Just get to the camp." But he's still running with her. And no sooner does he say, "Just get to the camp," does this creature jump out of the trees and stand no more than 20 feet from her. Tony's 2-3 feet behind her. He catches up, stops. And this thing is just, it is pissed. Its tail is, and both, Tony was at work when we started the conversation. Tony got home. Both saw the exact same thing and how it flicked its tail, how a cat would while hunting, waiting to pounce. Just this quick, all of a sudden they're doomed. They're in their head, they are doomed. They hear 2 quick bursts of a firearm, suppressed, and whatever at this point they can't see, it hits, boom, boom, right in the back of this creature. It lets out this just war cry and hammers up into the woods and goes the opposite side, what's standing behind this thing now, with the firearm still pointed in that vicinity of Tony and Maria, are military or private military. They don't know yet. They have no idea what's going on. Come to find out, they are or were in the Army Rangers. So pretty much top of the top, this, and that. They now are like, we have to get, out of here. But what the hell? Who is these people? Now they're getting questioned. Now they're in a vehicle. How many times have you seen this thing? What was the first time you've seen it? Do you have any pets? Have you seen any other people on the trail? Did it try to communicate with you? Tell us everything that you saw. Everything's still fresh, so they did. They get back to their campsite, and Tony and Maria get out of the van. All of a sudden, driver, passenger get out of the van too. Rifles slung, and they look at Tony and say, "We will retrieve your car, but right now the best thing for you and your fiance is to go with us. We will bring you to a secure location until we get this thing taken care of. And then that's that." Okay? Pretty much like, okay, no problem. Whatever you need. This creature that they just shot now, as they are now at their camp, drops onto the back of the SUV/van area thing. It was like a Mercedes kind of van, all-wheel drive, drops onto the back of it. Funk. They're in their camp packing up their shit as quick as possible. They hear suppressed fire, multiple rounds, and you can hear suppressed fire. You can hear 5.56 NATO rounds, even though they're suppressed. It's not a silencer, it's a suppressor. Essentially, they are the same thing. People think they are silent, but they are definitely not. It serves many different purposes. To help with ear damage, but the main purpose is to hide when they're shooting. The fire that comes out, so there is no marking. My brain just shut off and I completely forgot the name. And I shoot. I have a membership at a gun range. Muzzle flash. Don't you hate when your brain just shuts off? Muzzle flash. That's like that essentially is the one to help suppress the fire, but two to literally, like, you are, let's say you are in a bad situation, it's nighttime, the enemy is all around. The second they catch sight of your muzzle flash, they know where to hone and shoot. So, but you can still hear it. So they're hearing suppressed fire. They're hearing screams, human screams. This creature screams. One of the soldiers comes running into the cabin and says, "Stay in here. Do not move." Kicks the door shut and stands by that door waiting for this creature to come into that cabin. Even though there are 4 people with rifles out there hitting this thing. That's how dangerous this thing is. I have never heard of a crawler that is well built with a tail. They described it as the devil. That's literally like Maria and Tony both called it the devil. They're both very religious. They are of Latino descent. So very Catholic, Christian, religious, you bet your ass it looks like a devil. It's got a freaking tail and it's a whatever. It looks like a crawler, which I believe are a hybrid from demons. They get a yell. They come out. The soldier that was in the house or cabin with them opens the door, kind of looks around, gets the nod, boom. Gets everybody in the van. As they're driving out, Maria says, wait, what about the couple that's in the cabin up there? Soldiers are completely unaware of the other cabin and people being in it. They pull in, they grab that family out, and they drive away. The creature was believed to be put down, but tell me what that thing is. She had no idea. They get the people, boom, they get in that car, and they're driving out. Each family and couple had to leave their vehicles behind for some reason. Probably a forceful safeguard. Best thing I can think of, because if there are more of these things, as you are driving out of this deep woods, Tony doesn't have a freaking firearm with him. Like, he's got one, but, he doesn't have anything with him. So this thing lands in front of him, they're dead. So they are better off being with this. So there are no questions asked. Same with the other family. They proceed to get out of the camping area. And probably like 2 or 3 miles out of the wooded area, there seems to be what looks like a staging ground. There's a military tent assembled. There are what looks like lead cords and computers just set right up. They have no idea what happened to that creature. But the last they saw the staging ground. They're grilled, they're questioned. The family's grilled, they're questioned. How does anybody know? Like, they only were aware of this creature because they went on a hike and saw the damn thing. This family, they didn't see it. So why are they, getting grilled? Well, because maybe they did see it. Long story short, on the end, they get their vehicle. A couple soldiers come back, returning both families' vehicles to them. And they go on their way. From that staging area, though, the grilling that occurred, the questions that were told, were right up there with, like they were the criminal. They were the bad guy, which they obviously weren't. But in order for this to be the last of that creature, they've got to get all the information and this and that. they are contacted like 2 weeks later and told not to speak of it to anyone. Just keep it silent. And that's exactly what they had done for 13 years. They never got an answer of what this creature was. Maria and Tony have been dedicated to researching cryptids, researching crawlers. I have never heard of one of these creatures look so similar, yet be so opposite. Just, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I appreciate Tony and Maria sharing this, but my thing now is, what the hell is that? And how agile it was. I mean, just too insane. I don't know. So what is it? What is this creature? Is it a hybrid? Draconian or Draco are reptilian creatures with a wingspan, a large wingspan, tail. Some draconian are no wings, some have tails, some don't. The ones with the wings are the ones that are observed and looked at as possibly not demonic and not demons, but still demonic, but quite possibly descendants of those fallen angels, descendants of the Nephilim. No one knows for sure, because I've never heard of something like this. Not that I'm an expert, but I mean, I have read enough, learned enough, spoken to enough people that I've never heard of a crawler with a tail. On top of it, being muscular, being very strong on its own, like just, usually they band together. That's how they killed the Dogman. That's how JR witnessed a Dogman being killed in Gila. Now you have something much more sinister. What? Doesn't make any sense. It's just terrifying. With that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. Tony or Maria agreed. They both agreed to come on. I've done an interview with a husband and wife. I think it'd be cool to do an interview with these two. Just so they could, because they both have their different perspective of what happened. And what I shared was a combination of both. So I think it'd be cool to hear Maria's and Tony's side by side out of their own personal mouths. Hopefully they agree. If we do something like that, we're going to have to do a synthesized voice cover up. So I don't know. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. I'd like to get them on. But guys, thank you for supporting the channel. It is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, our family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth. And God bless you all.